Throughout history, there have been so many cases of treason, backstabbing, and even identity stealing, more than you can even count. From spies posing as authority figures and assistants, to normal everyday people slipping into professional competitions, and everything in between. So in today's video, we will be talking about the greatest imposters of all time. Some of them were way too skilled for your average Joe. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel to get notified with our latest additions. Frederick Borden. Borden, also known as the Chameleon, is a con artist with a long history who has impersonated persons in over 15 different nations, speaking 5 different languages. It was in 1997 that he assumed the identity of a missing Texan teenager named Nicholas Barclay. This was his most famous act, and it was the subject of a documentary called The Impostor, which was released on August 24th. Even though Borden was about a decade older than Barclay, French-Algerian, and not blonde, blue-eyed, and all-American, his description was so convincing that he was able to convince the FBI and, this is bizarre, Barclay's family. However, as the new movie demonstrates, that was only the beginning of the saga. Madhura Nagendra. Even though it was one of the most stringent security operations in British history, that did not prevent an impromptu impersonator named Nagendra from disrupting the opening ceremony of the Olympics. MBA student and trained dancer from Bangalore, Nagendra was part of the entertainment for the night. Nonetheless, she ended up joining the procession of Indian athletes in her excitement, as she relates. She stood out from the rest of the marching team, which was dressed in gold saris and turbans, thanks to a bright red hoodie and turquoise pants. Nagendra was not disciplined in this location. Rather, her parents instructed her to go back there, and she was questioned by the police as part of a routine investigation. Clifton James. James was born in Perth, Australia, but in 1940 he found himself in Leicester, England, having moved there after volunteering for the British Army. This is where his impersonation of General Bernard Montgomery, one of the planners behind the D-Day landing, was discovered by Lieutenant Colonel David Nevin. Yes, that one. And MI5. James was a performer back home, but his most important duty would be during Operation Copperhead, where he would act as a double for Montgomery to try to convince the Germans that the Allied invasion would come from the south of France rather than Normandy. For the role, he was asked to abstain from alcohol and smoking, and to use a prosthetic finger. Milli Vanilli. Do you remember the days when Milli Vanilli was one of the most popular bands in the world? The first album released by Bob Cletus and Fab Morvin was certified 6 times platinum, produced hits that peaked #1, and earned the duo a Grammy Award in the category of Best New Artist in the year 1990. Cletus referred to himself as the new Elvis at one point. Then, during a live event, the recording of their vocals jammed and skipped, which caused them to flee the stage in late 1990. The Los Angeles Times reported that they had not sung any of their hits. The Grammy was revoked, and customers were given the option to get their money back for records and events they had already paid for. The tragic conclusion is as follows. In 1998, the body of Cletus was discovered, and an overdose was assumed to have caused his death. The Moscow Philharmonic. The Moscow Philharmonic gave a string of concerts in Hong Kong to an enthusiastic audience of 10,000 people from the 7th to the 13th of August 2000. Each of these sold-out performances was a complete sellout, except that they didn't. The genuine Moscow Philharmonics, which is widely regarded as one of the best orchestras in the world, was indeed occupied at the time, performing in France, Spain, and Portugal. It is thought that they were a crew of musicians from less auspicious Russian orchestras on the make. The group made more than $300,000 in 1 week. No one in the crowds was able to identify the ruse, and the mystery has never been completely solved. Maurice Flitcroft. When Flitcroft, a crane driver from Borough-in-Furness, decided to compete in the British Open, he had never completed a full round of golf in his whole life. However, he was determined to give it a shot. In 1976, he competed at the qualifying tournament held in Formby, and he carded a round of 122, which remains the lowest score in Open history. This score is an astonishing 49 strokes over par. The general public adored it, but some in the golfing industry were not impressed. Yet the exploits of the self-proclaimed golfer extraordinary did not end there. As a result of being forced to play under a pseudonym, he came back to the Open in 1983 as Gerald Hoppe, a professional golfer from Switzerland, and played 63 for the first 9 holes before he was discovered. His last round, played under the name James Bo Jolly from the United States, lasted only 2 holes in the year 1990. Arnaud de Tile. Martin Guerrer vanished in the village of Artigat, which is located in the region Aragre in the southwestern region of France, in the year 1548. 8 years later, a man who claimed to be Guerrer came back. Bertrandi, Guerrer's wife, was so convinced that she went ahead and had 2 children with the man, only one of whom lived to adulthood. An uncle and 4 of Guerrer's sisters were all convinced. Over several years, skepticism grew, and it was during one of these years that a passing soldier pointed out that Guerrer couldn't possibly be the man in question, because the true Guerrer had a wooden leg by that point. Despite this, he maintained his cover, and Arnaud de Tile's identity was not revealed until Guerrer made a shocking appearance in person during the trial of the accused. The Tile came clean and was subsequently executed by hanging. Ellis Ward. The man, who is 29 years old and from Ware, Hertfordshire, rose to attention after posing as Inspector Winter, a specialist plainclothes officer with the Metropolitan Police, during the riots that took place in the previous year. Winter provided first-hand reports of the looting on his Twitter account, in television appearances, and a piece for the Daily Telegraph. These accounts are based on his experience serving in the military in Iraq and with the Territorial Army. It is stated that he was present in North London and carries false warrant cards, stop and search forms, and handcuffs at the time. This part of the story was not completely made up. In addition to being charged with several other offences, Ward is currently awaiting sentencing for credit card fraud. Dorothy Lawrence. Following in the footsteps of Joan of Arc, Lawrence was a British war correspondent who pretended to be a man to serve in the military during the First World War. She arrived at the Somme with fabricated papers as Private Dennis Smith, wearing a uniform that was borrowed from another soldier, strategically tying sections of her body together and colouring her buzz cut with furniture polish. She spent 10 days digging tunnels and laying mines, but in the end she decided to turn herself in out of fear of being discovered. Lawrence was probed as a spy, accused of being a prostitute, and denied permissions to write about her experiences as a result of her conduct. So she ultimately paid a hefty price for her behaviour. She eventually found herself admitted to the psychiatric facility at Colney Hatch. This picture is in the public domain. Mark Tufano. When Gary Oldman turned down the opportunity to play Andy Kaufman in the biopic Man on the Moon, it seemed as though that was the end of the story, so it came as a nice surprise to Milos Forman and Danny DeVito, the film's director and producer, when they got an audition tape from Gary Oldman. Even after that, DeVito called him again to continue their conversation about the proposal. On the tape, however, was a British actor named Mark Tufano, who was 31 years old, performing an impression of Oldman, performing an impression of Kaufman. Tufano said it was an artistic statement, and he added, "I think Gary Oldman is jealous of me." The actual Oldman was not amused by it, but Tufano insisted it was. Thank you for watching. We hope to see you soon on a brand new update, and don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel to get notified with our brand new videos.